Yeah, welcome from my side. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm talking about Modern MISP. So, what is Modern MISP? So basically, it's a re-implementation of MISP, or it's thought to be a re-implementation with a drop-in replacement. So we are keeping the same API, and we are also having the same database schema. So you can take your MISP, throw it away, and then you use Modern MISP, and you're good to go. So that's the basic idea. So we're using an API-first approach. So we are working with FastAPI and SQLAlchemy, and our web front end isn't using server-side generated data, but is using the API as every other API client would do. So why would you do such a thing? So maybe you have MISP in operation. We also wanted to use MISP, and then we tried to install it, but we have a Postgres database, and we saw in the repository, yeah, they have a Postgres SQL file. Then okay, just use that. And then we saw that, okay, it isn't working. And we tried for a few weeks to install it with Postgres, and then we failed and said, no, this isn't going to work. And we looked into the code and saw, okay, that is not fixable. So, okay, happens. But even when we tried to use it with a MySQL or MariaDB, it wasn't that fun to operate. So we shared this opinion with others, and they said, yeah, that's it. So I worked with FastAPI and SQLAlchemy and other projects, and I thought, yeah, just do it my own. How hard can it be? Pretty hard it is. That's the origin story. We know KIT is a university, and university has one big factor. It has students, a lot of them in our case. So every student has to do a software development internship at the university. So one semester long in groups of 5. And I thought, yeah, just put 2 groups together. One is developing the front end, one is doing the back end, and we're good to go. Shouldn't be that hard. Well, it turned out to need at least 3 rounds. We're still not finished, but we're in a good state. So in the first semester, we had 3 groups actually, because we had more students when we had projects. So I said, okay, let's do another project. And I was designing, okay, let's do the front end, the API, and the workers. Workers are just long-running jobs. For example, push and pull, synchronization, enrichment, correlation, and so on. In the second term, we're, okay, what would be nice to have additionally? So one group was focusing on a command line client, synchronizing backend or API with the front end, because previously it was different groups, and now we have one group that could play them together, and the other groups were implementing the MISP workflows. In the first semester, we again had 2 groups, and we focused on what we needed to set up a Modern MISP on its own. So you may know that when you install MISP, it first catches Galaxies, taxonomies, and object templates from GitHub and saves them in a database. So we wanted also that system. So we implemented them, or let students implement them in the workers. And the other huge topic was an appropriate access system. So which user of Modern MISP is allowed to access which event. So, yeah, I think that'll work. So, what is now the architecture of Modern MISP? Let's start. Okay. Oh, okay. So let's start at the data. So the database, the schema stays the same, I already said. But we introduced some Python packages. So the Modern MISP.DB package has some certain types. So for example, MISP often stores datetime as integers in the database, but we wanted to use datetime objects for our own sanity. Or sometimes MISP stores dictionaries and lists as JSON-coded strings in the database, and we just introduced our own type for that. So we can use them in the API and in the worker package. The API is just all stateless operations, create, read, update, delete. And if it finishes, the state is not relevant anymore. So the other thing important are the API schemas. The API schemas are written with Pydantic. So we have a whole lot of validation already happening with Pydantic. So we just say, okay, I need a Boolean value. And it doesn't matter if the user inputs a literal T, F, 1, 0, Pydantic all converts them to Boolean value accordingly. So another thing, the API and the worker API. So we introduced the worker API to create jobs. Think of jobs as synchronizing push-pull to other instances, or the free text import, because it could potentially be a very long text. Maybe we will use an LLM for that in the future. Yeah, so the worker API is just there to create and delete jobs. And then a new job is created, stores it in the Redis database, and the worker node picks that from there and executes the job, stores the result in the Redis database, or it also can manipulate the SQL database directly. Okay, and then we have the front end, which is just using the API. So that's the basic idea. So key attributes of our architecture is scalable in every direction. So if you have more CPU nodes, more RAM, you can increase your virtual machine. But you can also just deploy another machine next to it and use a load balancer. You can do that for the API and also for the worker nodes. Just deploy another worker node and connect it to the Redis database and you're good to go. And it's distributable because you just need another machine which has network. But I've always found it quite nice. You can also go very small. So if you don't need a front end, just leave it away. If you don't need workers, leave them away. You can also only work with the API. If you don't need a huge database, do an SQLite. So this is quite nice. And yeah, okay. Always have to check if you can read that. So how do you test such a project? We decided to handle that as a black box testing with MISP. So we take a database and connect both Modern MISP and Legacy MISP to the database, set up roles, attributes, events, and so on. And then we ask our Modern MISP, hey, please, this endpoint, get me all events or get me the single event. You'll see the paths that we do test here. And after we have our response from Modern MISP, we ask Legacy MISP for the same endpoint with the same parameters. and then we can compare them. They should be roughly equal. What does that mean? Well, it's quite hard to define an equality state there, because sometimes MISP returns integers as strings and sometimes as integers. So we convert all integers into strings and then we compare. Just makes it easier for us. And we also say, okay, if we return a none where legacy MISP doesn't return anything, so a key is not present in legacy MISP, then we also say, okay, that's okay, and just leave it in the, that's a good test. So. And last semester we introduced the access system, and we had a combinatorial explosion there. So if you create like 3 organizations for every possible combination of organizations sharing groups, for every distribution, events and attributes, you get like 1,000 test cases that you have to test, and we all tested them. So we can say that the access control is, at least for combinations that we tested, is equal to MISP now. So let's go a little bit into practice. How do I install Modern MISP? So need to get that to the beginning. So let's start with a very clean VM, in this case a container. Yeah, okay. We just start a new container, do the port forwarding. We install pipx. You can use UV for that, or create an all in Python environment on your own. You can also deploy it using Docker, Podman, I don't know, write your Helm chart. Just the important thing is that you set the environment variables in the right manner. So pipx takes a time to install, but it should be, yeah, always nice. The important thing is that you set the right environment variables, which we'll see in short. So now we have pipx installed. For the path, I'll start a new bash. And you see, first install MISP, the API and the workers, and then set the right environment variables. And then at the end, start the right binaries or scripts. So it's installing. Installing. And then we'll see a browser shortly. Takes a little bit. So now we have the MISP API installed, and it's installing the MISP worker package. So this is a clean Debian latest container in that case. It also works with a virtual machine, or bare hardware also would do the same thing. Takes about 3 minutes. I'll do it later with a systemd service file to set up the environment variables. All possibilities are there. So now we have the browser, and we have Modern MISP installed with the API, and I'm a little bit slow, the worker API. So not much special here. So, and then after we have installed it, we'll use the command line client our group created to set up the database. And then we can also create a new user with the command line client, in this case with the role site-admin. For the demo instances I will provide later, I use a systemd service file with the environment variables that you'll see, which are the same as you've already seen in the video. And then you should also handle some TLS. So just use a reverse proxy like KIT, and you throw the front-end files somewhere, and then you serve it from there. Because they're completely static, you only need the front-end files to put somewhere where you can reach it, and you set up a reverse proxy to handle TLS. So, and then our database is still pretty empty, so you can import the Galaxies, object templates, and the taxonomies using the workers. Okay, pray that the live demo will work. So, guess you'll see that. Okay, when you're opening Modern MISP, you are presented with the login page. So I'm logging, oh god. Okay. Nice. Okay. Sometimes it's just nervous. Okay, this is Modern MISP. Let's create a new event. So you'll see here that we have a view mode and we have an edit mode. That's true for the whole front end. Let's create a new event. Yeah, just use today. Distribution connected communities, and just say first live demo. And save that. So it's an empty event, obviously. Let's create a new attribute. You can create a single attribute or a MISP object. Let's do an attribute here. Here also connected communities, and I don't have a MD5 hash in my mind, so I just use an IP address. So this will hopefully fail. The error message is not that good, but it fails because the API says, no, this isn't an IP address. And if I use a real IP address, like that, I can save it. And I have created a new attribute to this event. Let's go there. Yeah, what else should we do? Let's add a new galaxy. So here, I like the actor types, galaxy, and I'm a social media platform administrator. Let's add it. So now I have the actor types, and I can go back to the event info, and you'll see that I have now the Galaxy cluster tag there. So now the whole purpose of MISP is to share its events. So let's do that. I already created a server. So, no, I need to publish that. Okay, now it's published. And I can push it to another instance using my server. And I say execute. And the response is okay. I get a shop ID, and I can retrieve the information from the database. But just let's look. So it isn't currently present there. And if I reload, it still isn't. So what happened? Okay, the worker isn't working. I guess that's the live demo thing. Yeah. Unfortunate. So normally it works. Just imagine that in the second instance there is the event. But okay, that's a live demo thing. Sad. Okay. One other cool thing I want to show you is that I can also use a free text import. So, for example, here you can add some free text, and it's turning them into MISP attributes. And for that, should be done. So much for the live demo. You can see here, it usually works, and it also alters the distribution to the right value. Need to look why it doesn't work here. Okay, for our roadmap, the next steps we are going to do is to do all the MISP database schema into our Modern MISP, and then we'll try to provide a migration manager, which you can use with the command line. And we're implementing the REST search, so we can also support sightings, which you may know from MISP. And we want to implement a better scheduling for our jobs so that you can periodically push and pull jobs. So if you want to play with Modern MISP, here are your credentials. It will be valid for at least this week, so don't need to hurry. You can see the source code at GitHub/Modern MISP, and our website Modern-MISP-Dev, where you can also see all the references that you have. So, thank you for your attention. I'm open for questions.
Thank you, Konstantin. The floor is open for questions. Please make your way to the microphones if you have any questions. And while we're waiting for our questions, please don't forget the speaker survey. They are an important part of speaker feedback. Looks like nobody has a question, but I have one for you. So when you started the project or throughout the process, did you have a chat with the classic MISP team, and what is their response to Modern MISP?
I know someone from MISP here, from Circle. I've written to them in December, but never got a response on my mail. I opened a GitHub issue because of the Postgres support, and that was also neglected. Yeah. Maybe I'll catch them here at the conference. I saw them already running around. But at least today, I don't have any reaction to this project.
Any other questions? If that's not the case, then please thank our speaker again.